Gururbrahma Gururvishnu Gurudevo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhusya Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyadravitam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Tvamedeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma viddhishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text?
Page 15.
Top, bottom, or middle?
Middle.
So we're still in the topic of renunciation and the different levels of renunciation. And we talked about weak, strong, and stronger, and then the Paramahansa, the renunciation of the Paramahansa is at two levels, where one enters the order of the sannyasa, leaving the world with the objective of self-realization. And here Vidyananya has said, that's as good as getting there. And then there is the second level of renunciation, which is the natural non-attachment to anything of the person of steady wisdom. Going on.
Atha yoginam paramahansanam koyam margaha iti vidvat sannyase naradena prishte sati guru bhagwan prajapatihi swaputra mitra ityadina purvat sarvatyagamabhidhaya kopinam dandam ma chantanam cha swashariropabhogarthaya lokasyopakararthaya cha parigrahet iti dandisvikarasya laukikatva mabhidhaya तच्च न मुख्यो अस्ति इति शास्त्रीय शास्त्रीयत्वं प्रतिषिध्य कोऽयं मुख्य इति चेदयं मुख्यो न दण्डं न शिखां न योग्योपवीतं न चाच्छादनं चरिति परमहंसः इति दण्डादिलिङ्गराहित्यस्य शास्त्रीयतामुक्त्वा न शीतं न चोष्णम् इत्यादिवाक्येन आशाम्बरो निर्नमस्कारः इत्यादिवाक्येन च लोकव्यवहारातीतत्वं भेदाय अन्ते यत्पूर्णान्यत्पूर्णानन्दैकबोधस्तद्ब्रह्माहमस्मीति कृतकृत्यो भवति इत्यन्तेन ग्रन्थेन ब्रह्मानुभवमात्रपर्यवसानमाचष्टे अतो विरुद्धधर्मोपेत तत्त्वादस्येवानयोर्महान् भेदः. On being asked, what is the course for the yogis who are Paramhamsas, by Narada, the teacher, Lord Prajapati advises, as before, the total renunciation of everything, saying, own sons, friends, etc., etc., and then says, the loincloth, the mantle, and the staff should be accepted for one's own use and for the benefit of the people at large. Thus, indicating that the acceptance of the staff, etc., is only customary, and by saying they are not the main thing, not the essential condition of self-realization, their being a part of the sacred text is forbidden.
So here, what moving, several hundred years into the future.
I'm sorry, I think there's
Oh, there's more.
there's more.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Then what is the chief condition? This is the chief. Neither the staff, nor the topknot, nor the sacred thread, nor the cloak. Without all these moves the Paramhansa. Thus, the absence of the staff, etc., the symbols of this sannyas, is the textual demand, saying this, neither cold nor heat affects the Paramhansa. And with these words, wearing the sky's regions as his garments, i.e., naked, and for him no convention of salutation, etc., it is thus shown that the Paramhansa is absolutely free from all social norms and conventions, and concludes the discourse by saying that what is ever full and bliss and knowledge, that is Brahman, and I am that Brahman, and thus becomes content. Realizing the self in this manner is the end and the fulfillment of life. Thus, there is a great difference between them for their contradistinctions.
So, summing it up, as I was beginning to say, moving forward several hundred years, the principles are the same. The outer signs of the spiritual life are initially taken up not only for our own use, but also for other people. So, for example, if you take on the cloth of the sannyasi, what you are marked as a person who is committed to the spiritual life. Now, here in the 21st century, at least in the West, you rarely see a Danda Swami. You don't see him walking around with a staff. But it does mark people aside. So, for example, in old-timey days before the Second Vatican Council, you would see a priest with the collar, or you'd see a monk or a nun in vestments. Sets them apart, not only for themselves, but for other people. Oh, I see, that is a person who's committed to the spiritual life. There can be a value in the beginning to do that. So people will see you. It inspires them. But later on, Vidyaranya says, none of this in the end is really what it's about. I've just finished going through a book with someone called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, great Tibetan Lama who came to the West. And it came out originally in the 1970s. That's when I first read it. It's 50 years ago now, my God. And it's held up well. But I love the term he used, spiritual materialism, where people move through the world with the outer signs of spirituality. You may wear loose yoga clothing, tie-dye shirts. You may have a Sanskrit name that your guru is giving you. And this, again, can be of use in early stages. It marks us in our own minds as a mumukshu, a seeker after wisdom. But that is not what real renunciation is about. And I always go to the story in Tripura Rahasyam, the story of Chudala and her husband, Sikidvajra. And at the very climax of the story, when he's out there in the forest and he's got a loincloth and he's living in a little hut and he's doing puja all the time, still has no peace. Chudala says, you've not renounced enough. He says, okay, I'm going to give up my hut and my ritual objects. And she says, it's not enough. It's okay, I will be sky-clad, just like Vidyaranya's talking about. I'll run around naked. And Chudala says, it's not enough. So then Sikidvajra says, okay, I'm going to jump off a cliff and kill myself. Give up the body. And she says, it's not enough. The only renunciation in the end that's efficacious is to renounce the mind. To renounce the mind is to renounce the world. And as long as I continue to believe my mind, then I have not renounced. So here again are maxims that I find useful. First and foremost, if I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. Drop any personal sense of self. If I am disturbed, no matter the cause, it's never, ever, ever out there. Nobody has the power to make me feel anything. If I'm disturbed, I'm the one with the klesha. the affliction. Period. What are those afflictions? Attachment, expectation, identification. Thoughts. It is an absolute statement. I cannot think a real thought. Whatever thoughts move through, I feel the awareness. They're just thoughts, but they're just imagination. They're not real. You don't have to believe. I have no thoughts or feelings of my own. None of these thoughts and feelings belong to me. Just don't do something. Sit there. Just don't do something. Stand there. These are all what I have found to be useful slogans, maxims, axioms that help us to renounce the mind itself. Any thoughts on this? What does my spiritual ignorance tell me? I'm a person. I'm my body, or I'm my body plus my feelings and thoughts. And I need things. I just find that the most weird statement that's in the psychological community. I'm not getting my needs met. We have so few needs. Food, clothing, and shelter. And even that's negotiable. Everything else, without exception, is karma. Raga and Vesha. There's no exceptions to this. And frankly, we will have no peace that's enduring until we renounce the mind. Oh, I forgot one that Tejo used to say. Do you know how to get rid of your worries? Quit worrying. Any thoughts on this? This is true renunciation. It's the only renunciation that's efficacious. And what about your equipment? It's the Lord's issue. Stay out of it. If the situation is conducive because of past karmas, experiences, gunas, the mind will be happy. If the situation is non-conducive, the mind will not be happy. It's so mechanical. It doesn't mean anything. And it's repetitive. Pay attention. It's incredibly boring. So yoga rudha, attaining to yoga, mounting the steed of the mind, is when I'm no longer at the effect of, I call it the inner 2-year-old, the indulgent tendency of mind. Next verse.
Smritishpayam Bheda Uktadisha Drishtavyah Sansarameva Nisansaram Drishtva Saradi Drikshaya Pravrajanta Kritodvaha Param Vairagyamashita. Pravritti Lakshano Yogo Jnanam Sannyasa Lakshanam Tasmad Puraskritya Sannyasya Dihi Buddhiman Ityadi Vividasha Sanyasaha Yada tu viditam tat syat param brahma sanatanam tadeka dandam sangrihya sopavitam shikham tyajeta. Yatva samyak param brahma sarvam tyaktva paribrajet. Ityadi vidvat sannyasa. In the Smritis also this distinction should be noted. Finding this worldly life to be meaningless, seekers having a very high degree of detachment, even before marriage, take to the order of sannyasins. Yoga is characterized by action and knowledge is characterized by renunciation. So the intelligent one, holding the knowledge as aim and end of life, renounces this worldly life. The foregoing Smriti text deals with the seeker's renunciation, and now about the knower's renunciation, thus. When that eternal Supreme Brahman, Supreme Self, becomes known in a way, then the seeker, holding one staff, gives up, along with the sacred thread, the top knot. But when the Supreme Brahman is realized directly and immediately, giving up everything, the ascetic, going out, becomes a mendicant.
Yes. So we have these two levels. We give up the world in order to become a jinyasu, a seeker after knowledge, a mumukshu, a seeker after liberation. Again, 21st century in the West, you don't have to take on the external trappings. Takes a long time for us to really renounce the world. How do we do it? It's never done as an active willpower. Our wills are too puny. The world is too powerful. It is always done through insight. When we watch, we see what's going on. And again, I go back to Shankara's qualifications of a fit student. Viveka, Vairagya, we've talked about those. Then the tuning up ones, the first one, Shama. That peaceful state of mind when it rests in steady contemplation of the goal. After having again and again, he says, Muhur, Muhur, detached itself from the chaos of the sense objects to a steady observation of their defects. Again, this doesn't mean the world is bad. It means my relationship with the world is what's causing me to suffer. I want my own way. How's that working out for you? If only I had a blah, 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 blah. And you get it. It's just different. And if we're conscious, if we're woke, we're paying attention, we see that the problem is not that the people aren't behaving. The problem is not that I don't have the right job, the right home, the right this or that. The problem is I have an addictive relationship with the world. I'm convinced I need that stuff in order to be happy. I don't get it. God help the people around me. So it's seeing it, letting the world, Swamiji used to say, kick us in the teeth, drop us again and again. It's the only way to have this mature vairagya. Then sannyas comes easy. And again, the externals are meaningless. You could have a job, a wife, or a husband, kids, everything, and still be a sannyasi. Emphatically, you can wear the orange cloth and still have attachments to status. Do they see how holy I am? All this nonsense. Next verse.
Nanu kala vidyasviva kadachito sukhya matrenapi veditumichha sampati evam vidvatta vyapatadarshinaha panditam manyasyatra balokyate na cha tau pravrajito drishto ato vividisha vidvatte kidrishe vivakshite iti chet uchyate yatha tivrayam bubhukshaya mutpannayam bhojanadhanyo na rochate vyaparaha bhojane cha vilambo api sodhum na shakyate tatha janma hetushu karmasva tyanta maruchir vedana sadhaneshu cha shravanadishu tvara mahati sampadyate tadrishi vividisha sannyasa hetuhu. Objection. As in other arts and sciences, someone may have a longing for the knowledge of the self, someone else may have a semblance of knowledge. Such conceited fellows are found here, but they are not seen to renounce. So what kind of knowledge and desire for knowledge are meant? Reply. The answer is this. As nothing except food appeals to a very hungry man, and delay in eating is intolerable for him, so strong dislike for the actions which lead to birth, i.e., samsara, and a great hurry towards the study, etc., which lead to knowledge, is arisen. Such a state of mind, that is, great desire for knowledge, leads to sannyas.
So here the objector sees what's going on in the ashram. A whole lot of people here who have weak desire for liberation. So it's fascinating to see that even in the 14th century, mutts, ashrams, monasteries are filled with people who do not have a desire for liberation. They're there for all sorts of other reasons. Many of them have unresolved issues around sexuality. Perhaps they've been abused as children, and they want to avoid the social norms of marriage. They may be gay or lesbian. Religion has been a safe place for gays and lesbians to hide, so they don't have to deal with family. There are people who, frankly, are just profoundly dysfunctional in the world, where the idea of getting a job and making a living is just too scary. So to retreat into a monastery or a convent or an ashram is to be safe. And then the one that probably is most painful, I want community. I want connection. I join, then I'll have community and connection. So you know what going to the ashram or the monastery is like? Marrying 20 or 30 people that you've never met before, with all the same issues that you have in a marriage, except for 20 or 30 people instead of one. We cannot escape. And then there are people who are just indolent and lazy. They think the spiritual life in the structure of a religious community essentially tamasic, with all the trappings of sattva. Very common. There are those who have a weak desire for liberation. Once they get in those environments, they get caught up in the silliness of politics and interpersonal relationships and all this kind of nonsense. So here Vidyaranya is saying, and there are those who want the knowledge. They are desperate for the knowledge. Here he says, who want it the way a starving person wants food. When I was in the ashram back in the 70s, it was a really strange place. There were, again, just like this subjector is saying, people there for all sorts of reasons. And then it fell apart. And many, many years later, I was actually out in San Francisco State. I ran into this fellow who had been in one of the houses out in the avenues. And he was so filled with anger for the guy who ran the ashrams. And I said to him, I said, Barry, you know, all I can say is I was never touched by it. I found Ram a mouthpiece for the scriptures. You know, I knew all this craziness was going on, but it never touched me. And Barry said, that's not because of Ram's purity. That was because of yours. A little older than most of the people who came in there. And I had intense emotional. I'd had some experience. There for one purpose. And here Vidyaranya is saying is, if we have that mumukshutva, burning desire. Well, I thought we're supposed to give up all our desires. We are. But in the beginning, what we have to do is sublimate our worldly desires into the desire for liberation. In the end, we give that one up too. But it becomes the engine for our practice. Any thoughts on this? Now, well, what if I have weak mumukshutva? No blame. But if you've superimposed a snake onto the rope and you want to keep smooching that snake, you're not going to see the rope. It's real simple. And we'll keep smooching the snake until we see there's nothing there. We don't see how evil the world is. We see that it's inherently shunyata, void, neutral. There's no real joy in the world. Listen carefully. In the beginning, we talk about needing to renounce worldly desires and go for the self. The truth is, there's no such thing as worldly pleasures. They don't exist. The only sukha, happiness, is yourself. We experience it in two ways. Directly, immediately, as we do in deep sleep, or with intense renunciation, or we get little flickers of it through a mediated experience. Desire, object of desire, they become one for a moment. Craving of the mind, the restlessness, the discontent is suspended. It's all that ever happens. But it can take us lifetimes to figure that out. Next verse.
Vidvataya avadhirupa desha deshasaha sarayamabhihitaha dehatma jnana vajjanam dehatma jnana vadhakam atmanyeva bhavedhyasya sa nachannapi muchyate. Shrutavapi vidyate hridaya granthi schidante sarva sanshayah kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. Mundako Upanishad iti. In the Upadesha Sahasri, the scope of learning is given thus. People identify themselves with their bodies, think they are their bodies. This body consciousness is sublated by the identification with the self, i.e., by such consciousness as I am the self. Who has realized this, he is liberated, even if he does not want it. In the Mundaka Upanishad, also thus, the knot of the heart, i.e., the identifying factor of the body and the self, is rent asunder. All doubts are destroyed. All karma, i.e., the latent impressions, are annihilated when the Supreme is perceived.
So the first thing that happens is avarana shakti, the non-apprehension. Then comes the vikshepa shakti, the projecting power. I think I'm a person. I think I'm a body. And that's an inherently limited feeling. It's always changing. Mind is obsessed. How am I doing? Am I okay? What do they think of me? And then the mind attributes ananda to the world, people, places, things, and situations. I need that stuff out there in order to feel okay. And then we start on the rat race of chasing shadows, literally. This goes on for lifetimes, always wondering, it's not working. Let me shift things around. Different people, different places, or things, different situations. And it's only when I've clearly seen about the body, prana, feelings, about the thoughts, especially I'm not that karta, that agent, that ahankriti, that chidabhasa, reflection of consciousness. Reminds me. Jivana, Shivo, Shivo, this consciousness. Shiva, I am auspiciousness itself. Then the Hridaya Granthi, the knots of the heart. Again, go back to Shloka 267. We just covered it last Thursday in Viveka Chudam. Even after realization of the truth. Meaning, I had these moments where it's clear to me I am that witness in consciousness. There exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, the karta bhoktacha, which is the cause for rebirth, meaning I re-identify. All of a sudden I'm Jim, all of a sudden I'm Adi, all of a sudden I'm Mark or David. As soon as that happens, boy, problems. It needs to be conscientiously rooted out through steady, continuous identification with the sound. All those aids that I talked about at the beginning. No personal sense of self is real. The device of ego, I'll be happy, it'll be better. See its fundamental unreality. Drop it, drop it, drop it. Tune up the mind. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Stay out of the dead past and the unborn future. Be here now. Remember who you are. Remember that this world is just a projection. It's a hologram. It's a virtual reality. Every night when we go to sleep, we prove to ourselves, if we pay attention, that the satisfaction of desires is not necessary in order to be happy. It is the cessation of craving. So, simple but not easy. It is the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation by the wise. My favorite shloka in Gita. When a person casts off all the desires of the mind, O Partha, and is satisfied in the sound, by the sound, then they're said to be a person of steady wisdom. Such is the power of Maya. We know this. We did. Next verse.
Paramapi hiranyagarbhatikam padamavaram yasmadaso paravaraha hriday buddho sakshinastada tadatmya dhyaso anadya vidyan nirmittatvena granthivad drishta sanshleshan patvat grantirityuchyate. Atma sakshi va karta va sakshitve apyasya brahmatva va na va brahmatve api tadbuddhaya vedin veditum shakyam va na va shakyatve api tadveda na matrena muktirasti va na va ityadayah sanshayah. Karmanya narabdhanya game janma karanani tadetad granthaditra yama vidyanirmita tvada madarshanena nivartate smritavapya yamartha upalabdhyate. The state of the Hiranyagarbha, etc., which is attainable by an individual through sacrifice, etc., is the highest in this world. Param, even that is inferior, avara, to that which is called the supreme. Paravara, that is Brahman. The superimposition of the identity of the witness with the intellect through the beginningless ignorance is like a knot entangling these two firmly, hence called a knot. Whether the self is merely a witness or an agent also, conceding it is the witness, it is Brahman, the supreme self, or not. Even if it is Brahman, is it intelligible or not? If intelligible, does the mere knowledge of it lead to liberation? These are the doubts, samshaya. Karma, the latent impressions of actions, are the cause of the future birth. These three things, i.e., the knot, the doubts, and the potential actions, are made of ignorance, avidya. Hence, by the knowledge of the self, they become non-existent. In the Smriti text, also, the same sense is found.
So here he reduces it to the same ideas that I just talked about and quoting from scripture. So there are those religious Hindus who think that through doing puja, yajna, I will expiate my sins and accrue merit. And when I die, I will go to Punyalok, a place of where you get the rewards for your good actions, sometimes called Swarga, to Hiranyagarbha, the idea of God. Then at the end of the age, I will be liberated. Is this true or is it not true? Who's to say? But it still does not bestow the freedom of the jnani, the freedom of the Jivan Mukta. So first is doubt, or first is ignorance. What are the three? The order he says the first not?
Yeah, the superimposition of the identity
Yes.
of the witness with the intellect.
So when I confuse the self with the idea of self, when I think I'm the body, I think I'm a person, an individual. Then my favorite name for it is the one that Gaudapada uses, Jiva Bhavana, the attitude or feeling. And for most of us here, we've had these moments when the mind is clear, the thoughts have thinned. Just listen outside to the traffic. Who or what hears? Who's the witness? Do you see that there's nothing there? Do you? Aditi?
Yes.
That's fundamentally different than when you're a person with issues. And that's the discrimination that has to be made over and over and over again. How do I do it? How do we do it here? Tune up. Some intense introversion. Introvert the attentive faculty. Notice who you are. Now think the thought, I'm a bowl of jello. Do you see that it just goes by? It's not real, it's not you. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm frightened, I'm okay, I'm not okay. They're no different than the thought, I'm a bowl of jello. Except there's all this feeling that's in there. I think it's so real. So the first was that superimposition. What was the second idea that he said?
Doubt.
Yes. Then I get all messed up about what's efficacious. Do I need to eat more salad? Maybe if I do different pranayamas. Then the third one.
Karma.
Yes. It impels me into some action. I need to do this. I need to stop doing that. Or we externalize it one level even further out. You need to do this. You need to stop doing that. Does that sound familiar? So the scriptures talk about our grossest body is the stula sharira. I think there's a grosser body than that. Paramastula sharira, which is the body of my affairs. I'm not only identified with the physical body, but then I extend my ego out to the people, places, and things around there. And then I want to control all of that. That's the body of the codependent. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Vistula Sharira, extremely gross body. But it's still all the same mechanism. Need to change my friends, my boss, my husband, my wife. Or I need to change my body, gain 10 pounds, lose 10 pounds, wear different makeup. Or I need to change my feelings, my thoughts of self. I'm okay if all this stuff is just controlled. I'm not okay if it changes. Let's stop. Open up your mind. Who are you? Satchidananda Rupaha Aham Mevaham. Existence, consciousness of this absolute is my form. I am that. You don't believe me? When I go there, for that moment, comes back. Meaning there's nothing to do in order for me to be okay, for the world to be okay. All right, one more.
Yasya na hankrito bhavo buddhirasya na lipyate hatvapi sa imalam lokan hanti na nibandhyate. Bhagavad Gitayam iti. Who does not think of himself as the agent of actions, whose conscience is clear, even if he kills the whole world, he never kills nor is bound. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 17.
Yes. So here he footnotes Gita. Arjun goes out to do battle. Remember, this was a fratricidal war, a civil war, brother against brother, cousin against cousin. It's just like in the here and now, you may be a progressive, but do you have family members who are conservative? So how does Arjun deal with it? He doesn't run away. He tries. I'm going to go off into the forest and meditate. Just says, don't be a wuss. Let the body just do its duty. You are not the killer, meaning you are not the agent, the actor. You are not that which is killed, meaning you are not the experiencer. This is sannyas. This is the sannyas of the Paramahansa. And in the end, no other sannyas is necessary, and no other sannyas is efficacious. I know Sanskrit. I've met Baba Labadaba. I have yoga pants I got from Etsy. I have a degree in this. I've done this practice, I've done that practice. But get out of my way! Does no good. That's no good. The world is just fine, just as it is. Swamiji used to say, graveyards are filled with indispensable people. He said, stick your finger in a bucket of water. Watch what the water does. Pull your finger out. Such is the world. All right, we'll quit here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om Tat Sat.